For more than a century, cheap oil, coal and natural gas have been the driving factors in the development of industrial societies. The prices of these fossil fuels are determined by the world market. If fossil fuel prices could be regulated to remain high and stable, it would favour the development and competitiveness of low-carbon technologies. This could be achieved either by means of taxation or by an international carbon trade system. Many industrialised countries have already put taxes on fossil fuels in order to finance public spending and because they wanted to stimulate energy savings. High prices for fossil fuels are an economic burden, especially for developing countries. During periods of high oil prices on the world market, governments in many developing countries have felt it necessary to subsidize fossil fuels in order to keep their economies running. So, as high fossil fuel prices will be harmful to developing countries, they'll need some sort of compensation from the international community. All countries will have to adapt to climate change, as global warming due to past emissions will cause a global temperature increase of more than 1 degree Celsius above pre-industrial levels. On a limited basis, some countries have already begun to adapt. Many early impacts of climate change can be successfully addressed through adaptation. With further climate change, though, the options to adapt will be more limited and the costs will increase. Examples of possible responses to climate change range from new planning regulations to building of dikes and changes in land use. The most vulnerable countries and people need support to adapt successfully to coming climate changes. It's in everyone's interest that developing countries don't follow the same development path and repeat the mistakes industrialized countries made before anyone knew about global warming. However, today, coal is still a cheap source of energy, and old-fashioned practices are cheaper than modern low-energy and low-carbon technologies. The new technologies are primarily developed in high-income countries. So, to limit or reduce emissions in developing countries, the transfer of these technologies is necessary. So in current negotiations, the funding of technology transfer to developing countries plays a major role. Large amounts of money will be needed for this purpose, as well as for adaptation. Negotiations will also deal with whether some kind of financial system should be installed, which would automatically generate the funding needed for developing countries. For example, by putting a tax on international transport. Another question for discussion is whether the world's developed nations alone should pay for technology transfer and adaptation, or if some developing nations too should also contribute.